Hey carnivores, it's Bella the Steak and Butter Gal. I hope you guys are having an amazing day so far, staying meat fueled and fat fueled. Today's topic, you guys actually voted for on Instagram. Why do I not eat salt? So I'll be talking about and answering all of your questions about why I don't salt, why I don't consume any salt, and as well as potassium and magnesium. So we're going to cover electrolytes today. I'm now carnivore for almost 2 years. I started January 1st of 2019. I feel like these past 2 years I have learned and experimented a lot with a lot of things. And one of them including salt. I have experimented with salt multiple times these past 2 years, and I can say confidently that whenever I add salt, I just don't feel as good. Whenever I ease off of the salt and cut it out completely, I really feel my best. I'm sharing my experience. I'm sharing what worked for me. But I do hope that this video helps and answers the questions that you guys may have in regards to electrolytes. So let's just get started. So first, a little background about me and salt. I started off the carnivore diet with just beef, butter, and eggs. And I really made it a chore to keep it as minimal in variety, as simple as possible, with high quality beef, high quality butter, and eggs. So the beef was usually ground beef, 80-20 ground beef, or some steaks that were grass-fed, grass-finished. Now these days, I don't really prioritize it being grass-fed and grass-finished, but I did prioritize it the first couple months when I first went carnivore. And about the salt, I actually started off the carnivore diet without salt, just because I really wanted to listen to my body. My body was not craving any salt. My body was craving the flavor from the beef, the fat from the butter, and the amazingness that is eggs. So I never really had any urges or tendencies to reach for salt, so I decided to not worry about it. It was only here or there, one meal of the week or a couple meals throughout the month where I would just season my meats or my broth with some salt. It wasn't anything crazy. It was probably just a few shakes on the steak or a bit in my bone broth. And of course, whenever I ate out in steakhouses, it's kind of impossible to have them not put any salt. I remember, telling them, can you make the steaks without any seasonings, no butter, no salt, no pepper, nothing, but just the steak. It would come and it would still taste quite salty. So I can't say that I avoided salt at all costs. Whenever I ate out, I would accept some salt if it was there. Now, it wasn't until this summer when I really experimented with salt. I really upped my salts quite a lot, just to see what would happen. And I do think experimenting is quite important when you're eating a diet like this. There's not much research, there isn't really that much content about the carnivore diet. So I think self-experimentation carefully is quite important because everyone is different. So this summer, for about 3 weeks, I really experimented with salt. I started slowly adding the salt to each of my meals. I would slowly sprinkle some salt on each of my steaks, and I would be eating 3 steaks per day, sometimes 4 steaks per day, or I would be cooking up some ground beef. I would make sure I salt each of those meals. And I quickly realized day after day, I would find it harder and harder to get out of bed. Now, that's the first sign that something is different. When I wake up, when I open my eyes first thing in the morning, I always monitor how I feel. And once I started adding salt, even a little bit, I started feeling like my eyes couldn't really open as easily. When I woke up in the morning, I kind of wanted to go back to sleep. And to be honest, I did a lot of those days. I just slept in, I slept more. And some days I didn't start my day until 11 a.m. or after. It was a big sign that the salt was not really working already. But I continued because I wanted to endure at least a few weeks of how I would feel with salt. Sometimes adaptation is necessary, and over time that could happen, right? So I kept salting, and actually by week 2, I was salting quite a lot. I was salting to the point where the food started tasting very palatable. I couldn't stop eating the steak because it was so good and so salty. So that's another thing. When you salt, you immediately increase the palatability of whatever you're eating. It tastes better. You want to eat more and you want to eat faster because it's saltier. I don't know. So that's another thing. I realized I ate more quantities of meat. I went from eating 2 pounds roughly to 2.5, sometimes 3 pounds. Obviously, if you're hungry, you should just eat. You should not be limiting yourself. I do not support restriction at all on this channel. But if you notice that you're eating quite a lot more just by adding in salt, then maybe salt could be messing with your hunger cues and your satiation signals. Just a thought. Another thing, I was drinking so much more water. I was thirsty as hell all throughout the day and at night. So not only was I reaching for water much more during the day, I would be waking up at night looking for water because my throat was parched. It was dry. I couldn't swallow comfortably because it was so thirsty and dry. So at night I would wake up to drink more water, and I would be waking up to go to the bathroom. I would be peeing up to 3 times overnight. So it was disrupting my sleep 100%. I was not sleeping nearly as well, and I would be sleeping in, and I would be waking up and going to the kitchen to drink more water and spending time in the bathroom to pee. So these things were really adding up, and they were not positive things. So I was eating more. I was waking up in the middle of the night. I was thirsty all of the time. My throat didn't feel great. And I was waking up later, and I didn't start my day as energetic, excited, and happy as I did when I did not eat any salt. By week 2, I started to conclude that, hey, salt is messing with my hunger signals, my mood, my sleep, my energy, and my wallet because I'm eating more food, therefore spending more money. It just didn't seem like it was going well. But I endured 1 more week just to make sure. And by week 3, I started realizing my face was getting puffy. My face was getting very swollen, and my eyes, okay, so because I'm Chinese, I'm Asian, I have a double eyelid. And if you don't know what a double eyelid is, basically Asians either have single eyelids or double eyelids. We don't have much dimension in our eyes, but when we have double eyelids, we like to keep it double. If you're Asian, you know what I mean. But look, by week 3 of eating that much salt, I realized my double eyelids were gone. My eyes became single lid eyes. And that was very sad because us Asians, we love big eyes, you know? It always makes our day when we wake up with a nice thick double eyelid. By week 3, I was having single eyelids every day. So it was kind of sad, you know, having a puffy face, swollen eyes, thirsty throat, and all of these other negative symptoms. So that kind of sums up my 3-week experimentation with salt. Let's talk about the positives. The steaks tasted really good. That's about it. And I'm really trying to think about more positives. I did not see any increase in energy, in mood, and my sleep was just so bad that it kind of affected my whole day. Now also keep in mind that I'm not an extremely active lady. I don't really work out too much, even though I'm just now starting to go to the gym. But when I did the experiment, I was just taking 1 to 2 hour long relaxing walks with Simba every day. I wasn't really sweating much. So maybe that could have to do with the reason why I don't need salt at all. But look, this video is all just my personal experience. In no way am I giving you guys medical advice. I'm not a doctor, right? I'm just a gal who is sharing what works for me on the carnivore diet. So now let's just move on to the questions. You guys all asked me a bunch of questions regarding salt on Instagram. So I will start the Q&A right now. First one by Kelly Hogan herself. She says, are you familiar with 12-year carnivore Dana Spencer? No salt. She's a goddess. So I actually searched up Dana Spencer and found Kelly Hogan's video interviewing her about why she does not eat salt. So basically, Dana Spencer is a carnivore goddess. For 12 years, she did not consume any salt. And in the video, she explains why. And to be honest, I agreed with everything that she mentioned and everything that she said about why she doesn't eat salt. It's so funny because I read Owsley's book on all of the things that he recommends if you want to start the zero carb diet. I'm not sure if he coined the zero carb diet, but that's what he calls it as well. So I read his book and I actually quoted quite a few of his quotes in a previous video that I made on why I don't eat salt. But anyways, I do agree with everything Dana said. She even says that salt ages your skin. You guys can check out the video linked down below. Amanda Falls asks, how did you overcome dehydration and electrolyte deficiency in the beginning? So as I said, when I first went carnivore, I actually didn't really salt at all. So I didn't really find that I felt dehydrated. I didn't feel thirsty. I just ate whenever I was hungry. And I do believe that meat, especially beef itself, has all of the electrolytes we need: the sodium, the potassium, the magnesium. And of course, when you're incorporating organs like liver and kidney and heart, or whatever organs you're eating, those also give you the electrolytes and the minerals that your body needs. So I just feel like adding salt, this external thing, is unnecessary, especially potassium and magnesium. Supplements or powder form, it's just not necessary. In fact, it could be risky, it could be dangerous, because you don't know exactly what your body needs when it comes to each of these electrolytes. So I really now rely solely on whole foods, whole meats, organs, beef, pork belly, eggs, butter, whatever I'm eating, that is where I'm getting my electrolytes, not a salt shaker. Any drops in energy when you stopped salting. So after that 3-week experiment, when I stopped salting, and do know that I weaned off of the salt as well as gradually increased the salt. I think that's very important. But when I started weaning off the salt, I started seeing a gradual increase in energy. And when I completely cut out the salt again, I felt my best. I felt very energetic. I would wake up first thing in the morning, ready to conquer the day, how I usually am as a carnivore without salt. Tokriart asks, I don't really understand the whole electrolyte thing. Honestly, I don't really either. I just know that a lot of the carnivores in the carnivore community like to tell people that electrolytes, especially salt, is essential on this diet. So when I say I don't think salt is necessary or as important as people make it out to be, it may actually be essential for you. So this is why I say you should definitely experiment a couple weeks or at least a week with or without salt, and make sure you wean off of it or gradually increase it and see how you feel. I've been waking up to pee every night since going carnivore, 1 month plus already. Any idea why? Well, given my experimentation, are you waking up to pee because you've been drinking more water because you've been salting a lot? You know, the salt could be the culprit, because when I started salting those 3 weeks, I definitely woke up to pee, if not once, twice, even 3 times. And when I stopped the salt, I could sleep the whole night without peeing, and that's huge. That's very important to me, because whenever I wake up in the middle of the night, it's hard to go back to sleep. My sleep is completely disrupted and I don't feel as well rested the next morning. So definitely play around with the salt, if not cut it out. 4456218A asks, how did salt make you feel? Did quitting it change your bowel movements? So I already explained how I felt with salt, basically not good. And the bowel movements are a good question. I definitely had diarrhea the first few days of adding salt into the experimentation week. The first week, actually, it was just loose stools. It was more frequent too, but it was very loose. Diarrhea. Okay. The second week, it started to normalize and I started to poop less. But by week 3, it was just back to normal. So honestly, salt didn't make too much of a difference on my stools. So actually in my Poop 101 video, I do recommend adding salt if you are constipated, because apparently salt can help with the digestion and get the bowel movements going. So that also explains why I had more frequent poops and looser stools. Did salt affect your skin? I'm battling with acne. So after watching Kelly Hogan's video with Dana Spencer, apparently she says salt makes your skin worse. It ages your skin. So I don't think my 3-week experiment was nearly long enough to show me what salt can do to skin. but I definitely didn't see any improvements to my skin. I didn't break out at all. I didn't see any negative reactions or bad signs in my skin when I added the salt, but I also didn't see any benefits either. LC asks, but do you salt lamp? Oh my gosh, I had a salt lamp growing up and I was obsessed with it. I think it's a very nice piece of decoration. Just don't lick it. Shelly asks, difference between the different kinds, Redmond real salt versus gray salt versus Himalayan. So I think real salt is by far the most popular brand of salt within the carnivore community. So that's actually what I got during my experiment. I remember I was in Seattle and the local Whole Foods had a little real salt shaker. So that's what I experimented with. But the few times that I did add salt to my meals throughout my 2 years of carnivore, it was either sea salt or Himalayan salt. I'm not sure if there is that big of a difference between Himalayan or sea salt, but I would just stick to those two. Or if you have real salt, just stick to that because everybody loves that brand. 1979, Argina asks, did salt increase your appetite? Yes, it did. And like I said, during those 3 weeks, I did notice I was eating much more than usual. I realized I was going to the grocery store more frequently because I kept running out of meat. So I was definitely eating more. Did the salt intake cause more thirst than usual? Yes, definitely. So I was thirsty all of the time. I was drinking iced water all throughout the day and at night. So not great. Did the calf cramps stop after no more salt? So, I actually never really had muscle cramps. And this is a huge thing. This is actually a huge reason why people reach for a lot of salt, is to diminish or prevent muscle cramps or muscle tightening. I never had muscle cramps. And I think it's because I just don't sweat a lot. I'm just not that active. So the electrolytes that I'm getting from my meals, the meat itself, is enough to support my muscles and my body. So I never dealt with muscle cramping, but adding the salt didn't induce cramping and it didn't really make my muscles feel different. Oh, however, now that I really think hard, when I was vegan, I would often have the toe cramping where my toes would curl up involuntarily and it's very painful and it's hard to uncurl them unless I use my hands and pry it back. I would have that all the time. And I didn't know why until I started carnivore and doing all this research. It does have to do with electrolytes. So if you're having toe cramping or muscle cramping, leg cramps, it may very likely have to do with electrolytes. But does it mean you need more electrolytes or less electrolytes? It actually could be either or. So this is why I think experimenting is very important. When I went carnivore, all of those toe cramps stopped, just never happened again. I still don't get them anymore. So I think the electrolytes in the meat itself was enough to heal my toe cramps. Sarah Grace 25 says, electrolytes are essential. Why no salt for you? So Sarah, I do think electrolytes are essential, but I don't think electrolytes have to be consumed through salt or potassium or magnesium supplements. I get my electrolytes naturally within my meats, within the salmon that I eat. Seafood is very good with all the minerals and electrolytes. So whenever I do want something salty, I reach for raw fatty salmon and that hits the spot. I no longer feel like I need something salty anymore. So instead of reaching for table salt or real salt, I'll usually find it through my meats, my seafood, my eggs, and my organs. Life of Nala asks, can salt retain water weight? Yes, absolutely. However, I'm not sure if this is going to apply to everyone, but for me, when I experimented with salt, I had a puffy AF face and my eyes were so swollen that I didn't have my double eyelids anymore. And I noticed that even my nose. Carnivore Cowgirl says, I crave salt. Is there a reason for that? I do exercise and sweat a lot. So if you crave salt, that's a different story, right? If you're eating all the right things on the carnivore diet and yet you still crave salt, try adding seafood first, okay? Try adding some oysters, shellfish, salmon, whatever sashimis you like, try adding that and then see if you still crave salt. If you still crave salt, then just add salt. Salt your steaks. But I wouldn't go as far as to salting into your mouth or dumping salt into your water. I think that's a little excessive. Start off by salting steaks or meals, eating it with your meals as flavoring, as a little topper. I wouldn't go as far as to dump salt into your mouth or into your water. If you actually crave salt, then eat it. Jen Smith, 80, says, eating past satiety on carnivore. I'm so full, but am always ravenous. So I'm not sure if you're salting a lot or if you're not eating salt, but it could be one of the reasons why you're super hungry, and it could also be one of the reasons why you're eating more. But I can't pinpoint for you. However, I can say that for me, when I had an insatiable appetite, when I was ravenous, I'm pretty sure it was because I just restricted for so long. Being on the vegan diet for 6 years was not great for my hormones or for my metabolism. And on top of that, I was restricting all the time and counting calories, mostly for vanity reasons. But when I went carnivore, it was a different story. I was eating whenever hungry, and I was eating up to 5 pounds a day. I was eating so much more, but I felt so much better. So if you're having this huge appetite once beginning carnivore, it could just be your body needing to heal. It could just be your body actually just hungry for food, for meat, for nutrient-dense things. And I don't think you should deny it, and I don't think you should try to blame it on salt and suddenly cut out salt and start adding more issues to the plate. I think you should just eat when hungry, stop when full, and eat again. If you're kind of hungry, just eat. Just eat as much meat as you want. Small Cat and Tall Cat says, hey love, what's up with many Americans who are afraid of fluoride and or iodine? Here in Europe, we take it as a supplement for teeth. USA sounds like conspiracy theorist, chemtrails, etc. Here in Europe, we have iodine plus fluoride fortified salt. Wow, okay. So I do get questions from fellow carnivores asking if I use toothpaste because apparently fluoride is really bad and you should not be using toothpaste because it has fluoride. So I do get a sense that some people are very against fluoride. With iodine, I thought iodine is actually good for health. So I can't really share much to represent Americans as a whole. But look, I brush my teeth with Sensodyne toothpaste, and I can't really be bothered to stress about not using fluoride in my toothpaste. If you guys want to share with me any research or any content to prove that I should stop using fluoride or iodine or toothpaste, do share it in the comments. I'm willing to research, watch, listen, and learn. Red Fox RXN asks, how much salt is too much salt? I can't really tell you like exactly how much salt is too much salt, but I can tell you that if you are starting to feel negative symptoms and reactions like waking up to pee at night multiple times or being super thirsty all the time, that's not really normal, and you should not have to feel like that every night or every day. So that could be a sign you're eating too much salt. So I think just being aware of how you're feeling, you should be feeling great. You shouldn't be drinking tons of water all the time. I usually just drink 2 cups maximum of water with some coffee in the morning, and I don't feel like I'm thirsty at all throughout the day. Miss Mel's says, I get headaches if my electrolytes are low, or so I thought. Okay, so sometimes if you are not eating enough electrolytes, you may get headaches, you may get dizziness, you may get those black dots when you get up really fast. But look, you don't have to go for potassium and magnesium supplements or salt to get in enough electrolytes. Firstly, I would be asking myself, am I eating enough? Are you eating enough? Because a lot of people, when they first start carnivore, they're not eating nearly enough. They're eating way too little because yes, meat is very dense, it's very heavy food, but if you're gonna get your electrolytes through your meat, you need to make sure you're eating enough, just calories wise. You need to be eating enough food, enough meat. So I get plenty of electrolytes from my meals, from my steaks, my ground beef, because I actually eat quite a lot. So I think that would be the first thing you should ask yourself, are you even eating enough? If you really want to get your electrolytes through your meats and your food, then you have to be eating enough. So eat enough beef, eggs if you can tolerate eggs, and definitely organs. Honey says, I found salt makes me more thirsty. Me too, girl. I got parched when I did my experiment with more salt. Moraz asks, how much salt do you consume a day? So nowadays, 0. I don't salt at all. But what about sodium? I'm getting plenty of sodium in my beef, in my eggs. There is actually electrolytes in meat, in animal foods. So I don't need to be adding electrolytes. Analytic Grit asks, did you ever salt or supplement and do you never get cramps? So those toe cramps are gone, right? And I don't need salt to prevent my toe cramps that I suffered with. I never supplemented with any of those potassium things and those magnesium powders. I do hear that Epsom salt baths are great. I also hear of magnesium sprays. I never really used those things. I kind of just ate a ton of beef and 12 eggs a day, if not more than that, and raw liver. So that is all of the questions regarding salt, potassium, magnesium, electrolytes in general. So to finish off this video, I do want to emphasize again that everybody's body is different. Everyone's body is going to require different amounts of electrolytes. But I do think it's a great idea to first rely on the foods we're eating, the meats, the organs, the eggs, the dairy, whatever you're eating on this carnivore diet. Try to rely on those foods first to get enough electrolytes and minerals. And if you still think you crave salt, then definitely feel free to salt your food. But I don't think it's necessary to be dumping salt in our water, to be dumping salt into our mouth directly. And I also would be very careful, very wary of supplementing with potassium and magnesium. Now, do I avoid salt like the plague? Absolutely not. Sometimes I want to enjoy a delicious raw block of cheese. Well, as you all know, there's quite a lot of salt in cheese, but I'm fine with it. I just allow myself to enjoy cheese whenever I want to. And nowadays it's like once a month, but when I do, I have no regrets. And if I feel a little puffy the next day or a little drowsy the next day, it's whatever. And also, whenever I go out to eat at restaurants, which actually hasn't happened much, but when I do, I'm always prepared that the chef is going to bring my food out with salt on it. So I'm not really gonna avoid salt like the plague or deny any foods to enter my system if it has salt on it. But when I can make the conscious decision of what I eat, when I can cook for myself, I will not be salting any of my meals just because I feel my best without any salt. So there you go, guys. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I would love to know if you salt. How much do you salt, or do you also not salt at all? Please comment down below anything you want to tell me and any questions you have, and I will be sure to reply and answer. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, turn on the bell notifications to not miss whatever I post next. I'll see you guys in the next video. SBG out.